So moved. Can everybody hear me? So moved. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the honour of addressing you at this Burns supper. My name is Harrower. I was born in Edinburgh in 1969. I immigrated to this great land, a pimply, unintelligible, 6-foot-tall, sideburns 12-year-old in 1981. Thanks again for having me. I have to admit, I did go onto the interweb to research some information on the Bard of Ayrshire. I found to my surprise a Scottish online encyclopedia called Wikipedia. While it was very helpful, there was an unnecessary amount of swearing on this website. What I did learn was that Robert Burns was born November 24th, 1950, an American drummer who was in the original lineup of the rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd. During a brief period in the early 70s, Ricky Matlock occasionally played alongside Burns on drums for live shows. A two-drummer lineup similar to the Allman Brothers Band. Sorry, just a minute. You take the high road and I'll take the low. Oh, here we go. Robert Donald Burns was born April 5th, 1968, and is an American professional golfer. He's played on the PGA and nationwide tours. He turned pro in 1991 and joined the PGA Tour in 1994. Wikipedia. A right old piece of shite. Robert Burns, born the 25th of January 1759, is widely regarded as the national poet of Scotland. On his birth, and his birth, is the reason we are assembled here tonight. Other events occurring on January 25th include Henry VIII marrying Anne Boleyn in 1533, the first Emmy Awards in 1949, and the Bard shares his birthday with Alicia Keys and Argentinian race car driver Martin de Alzaga. Wikipedia. Born in a clay cottage in Alloway Ayr, built by his father, William Burns, B-U-R-N-E-S, brother to Gilbert, William, Agnes, Annabella, and Isabel, Robert was the son of a poor but hard-working farmer. His dad invested in education for his sons, in particular English grammar and composition. Like most farm children, the opportunity for formal education was limited because children had to help on the farm, especially at harvest time. This hard physical work caused Robbie Burns to develop the heart condition rheumatic fever, which was later to claim his life at an early age, much to the disappointment of Lynyrd Skynyrd fans in the PGA Tour. The Bard had little regular schooling and got much of his education from his father, who taught his children reading, writing, arithmetic, geography, and history, and also wrote for them a manual of Christian belief. His father also taught them that haggis had 2 legs shorter than the others because they lived on the side of hills. After a few years of home education, Burns was sent to Dalrymple Parish School during the summer of 1772 before returning at harvest to full-time farm labouring. At the age of 15, during the harvest of 1774, Burns was joined by Nellie Kilpatrick, inspiring his first attempt at poetry. Oh, once I loved a bonny lass, aye, and I love her still. And, whilst that virtue warms my breast, I love my handsome Nell. So why are we here tonight? What is so everlasting about the works of Robert Burns, you might ask? The English have Shakespeare, the Irish have Joyce, the Americans have Maya Angelou. The Italians have Dante, the Germans have Goethe. Goethe is considered the supreme genius of modern German literature. His works span the fields of poetry, drama, prose, philosophy, and science. His Faust has been called the greatest long poem of modern European literature, but we're not here eating sauerbraten with turnips and gravy. Why is it Burns' work is celebrated internationally with suppers from Armenia to Zimbabwe? I'll tell you why. He was a romantic, and apparently hung like a Highland cow. Let's start counting girlfriends and wives, shall we? There's Nellie Hello. We have Nellie Kirkpatrick, Peggy Chambers, Meg Cameron, Mary Campbell, Anna Park, Alison Begbie, Maria Liddell, Leslie Bailey, Jessie Leward, Peggy Thompson, Laura Duncan, and Mary DeFeo, and Jenny Cloud. He did have other interests, though, such as setting up the Bachelor's Debating Club in Tarbolton. I suppose he needed a break once in a while. Despite his ability and character, Burns's father was consistently unfortunate and migrated with his large family from farm to farm, without ever being able to improve his circumstances. In 1777, he removed his family from the unfavorable conditions of Mount Oliphant to the 130-acre farm at Lochlia near Tarbolton, where they stayed until William Burns' death in 1784. Subsequently, the family became integrated into the community of Tarbolton. To his father's disapproval, Robert joined a country dancing school in 1779. His earliest existing letters date from this time, when he began making romantic overtures to Alison Begbie. In spite of 4 songs written for her, and a suggestion that he was willing to marry her, she rejected him. This inspired the song My Aim Is True, recorded by Elvis Costello in 1976. He continued to write poems and songs and began a commonplace book in 1783, while his father fought a legal dispute with his landlord. The case went to court. Burns's father died 2 weeks later. His casual love affairs did not endear him to the elders of his local kirk. His first child, Elizabeth Peyton Burns, was born to his mother's servant, Elizabeth Peyton. While he was embarking on a relationship with Jean Armour, who became pregnant with twins in March 1786. Burns signed a paper attesting his marriage to Jean. To avoid disgrace, her parents sent her to live with her uncle in Paisley. Although Armour's father initially forbade it, they were eventually married in 1788. Armour bore him 9 children, but only 3 survived infancy. One can only assume Burns was trying to assemble his own junior rugby club. His failed attempt at Burns' birth control was simply a Maltesers wrapper and a number 3 postal elastic. Wikipedia. Burns was in financial difficulties due to his want of success in farming, and to make enough money to support a family, he took up a friend's offer to work in Jamaica. The position that Burns accepted was as a bookkeeper on a slave plantation. This seems inconsistent with Burns' egalitarian views, as typified by his writing of The Slave's Lament, 6 years later, and the classic album Legend by Bob Marley. It's a little-known fact that Robert Burns invented reggae. At about the same time, Burns had fallen in love with Mary Campbell, good grief, whom he had seen in the church while he was still living in Tarbolton. She was born near Dunoon and had lived in Campbelltown before moving to work in Ayrshire. He dedicated the poems The Highland Lassie, O Highland Mary, and To Mary in Heaven to her. His song, Will You Go to the Indies, My Mary, and Leave Old Scotia's Shore, suggested that he couldn't think of a shorter title for the song, and planned to set her adrift on a raft. As Burns lacked the funds to pay for his passage to the West Indies, it was suggested that he should publish his poems as a way of getting a little money to provide him more liberally in necessities for Jamaica. On April 3rd, Burns sent proposals for publishing his Scotch poems to John Wilson, a local printer in Kilmarnock, who published these proposals on April 14th, 1786. On the same day that Jean Armour's father tore up the paper in which Burns attested his marriage to Jean. Excuse me. On July 31st, 1786, John Wilson published the volume of works by Robert Burns, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect, known as the Kilmarnock volume. It sold for 3 shillings and contained much of his best writing, including Twa Dogs, which is my mother's favourite, The Cotter's Saturday Night, To a Mouse, which is my favourite, Epitaph for James Smith, and To a Mountain Daisy. The success of the work was immediate, and soon he was known across the country. Burns postponed his proposed immigration to Jamaica when he learned that Jean Armour had given birth to twins. So there's your fullback and your scrum half. On September 4th, Thomas Blacklock wrote a letter expressing admiration for the poetry in the Kilmarnock volume and suggested an enlarged second edition. A copy of it was passed